This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Now, prepare yourselves for Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels Special Edition.
Hello, Scoundrel Nation, and welcome back to Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and this Scoundrel Special Edition. I am your host, Dennis Keithly, and with me is my friend and co-host, Jay Krebs. How are you doing, Jay?
Hey, Dennis. Hey, Scoundrel Nation. I'm doing very, very well. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Slowly getting over the con crud. But we're recording this not too long after Star Wars Celebration ended, and I'm not exactly sure what's going to come out. So some of this may seem a bit dated whenever you do hear it, but here it goes. We are down a co-host tonight. You may have felt a dark disturbance this past Monday, and yeah, that was tax day. And our dear Dark Lord of the Shtick, Darth Taxus, has been caught up in his wake. So he won't be joining us tonight as he is busy putting out tax fires all over the galaxy. So we miss him, but he'll be back with us soon. If you are new to Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels, then let me welcome you to our show and to our special brand of Star Wars discussion and fun. You've joined us for a Scoundrel Special Edition, which are our in-between episodes that forego discussion and focus on a particular piece of content. So sometimes we refer to these as our Blu-ray extras of the show. Tonight, we are going to be discussing my recent weekend at Walt Disney World for the Star Wars Rival Run weekend. And if you are a regular listener to the show, you've heard me talk about this for months now, ever since I registered for it. And Disney World has its race weekends a few times a year, and the one in April is themed all around Star Wars. So how could I resist? So we're going to just go through that, starting with Thursday. It was the second day that we got there. And Jay, this is kind of the day I felt like you would enjoy the most, beyond the running, because it was, in a way, like a haven for That's So Wizard. You go to the expo and you get to pick up your race bibs, and there's one for each of the different races you're running. And then they have the store set up there so you can buy all the race affiliated merchandise that comes with it. So I picked up my bib for the 5K, and then I was doing the Rival Run Challenge, which is the 10K followed by the half marathon. And if you complete that race, you get a bonus medal. And so that's one bib. And then I was doing the Kessel Run Challenge, which was the virtual half marathon and the half marathon. So I had to go to yet another desk to pick that up, which is actually just a wristband that you wear on the day of the half marathon so you can get your Kessel Run medal. But then the expo there was full of a lot of great stuff. You get a shirt for each one of the races. So if you're running the 5K, they have one that features Finn and Phasma. Then if you're running the 10K, you get a shirt that has Han Solo and Boba Fett, and the half marathon has Rey and Kylo on it. But then they have finishers versions of the shirt, and they have men's versions and ladies versions and a lot of other stuff. They had Chewbacca running shirts. They had a Solo themed running shirt and a dark side one. You know, it was just the money was leaping out of my wallet at that point.
I'm sure. I would have been the same way, but I know you were wearing your tech shirt from the Castle Run the first night that we finally met each other at Celebration. And yeah, it was a really good quality shirt too. So I can imagine that, the wallet was probably being pulled out quite a lot.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about that Kessel Run one is that beyond the fact that it stated, the Kessel Run Challenge on the front of the shirt, it just looked like a good Star Wars shirt. Talking about, and it went with the Han Solo jacket that I was wearing there at the convention that day, and so that might be my favorite one. But I also picked up the Kessel Run cap, and which is not the dad hats that we've been talking about recently on That's a Wizard. And then I also picked up the half marathon hat, which just says Star Wars Run Weekend Half Marathon on it. But I'll have to get some pictures together of some of that stuff, because it was I went overboard. I really did. I don't have a whole lot of fun running gear. I've got good practical stuff, but this is stuff that I know I was going to be running in for a while, especially when it's going to be hot this summer. A lot of good short sleeve stuff is going to work out and be the way to go.
I was really enjoying all your pictures, though, that you were posting on Instagram of the various characters that you were able to pose with and everything like that. And Be Our Guest Mike, I know when you had him on for the Rival Run preview, was talking about the fact that there were going to be a lot of different photo ops and things along the way too.
Yeah, and that starts before the races, which I'll get into that right away, because that Friday morning was the 5K. And you have to get up way early in the morning, as Mike suggested, because you catch a 3:30 a.m. shuttle to get you over to the start of the race. And the races don't really start until 5:30, but they just have thousands upon thousands of people to get there. And they want you to take, if you're staying on their property, they want you to take their shuttle. So you don't, because they're closing down roads or reducing roads down to a single lane for traffic so that they can make way for all the runners. They're going to be out there. But you get there and, you take the shuttle over there. Well, you're there before 4 o'clock in the morning and you have over an hour and a half to kill before these races start. But they do set up a lot of Star Wars entertainment. And now, if you're at Celebration, you probably got exposed to DJ Elliott and Mark Daniel, the MCs that do all kind of the they hype up the crowd before the main stage panel. Well, they were there at Rival Run weekend each morning.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and they were doing a lot of the same stuff. They did a game where they'd flash a character up on the screen, and you had to identify as many as possible, like inside of a minute, whatever. And it was. I was trying not to be critical, because when you're on the spot, it's a lot more difficult than when you're the guy that's like standing back in the crowd and doesn't have any pressure put on them. But I was doing pretty good. I was hitting well over 90% of them. They would put like, you get R2-D2, Chewbacca, Han Solo, Darth Vader, a Stormtrooper. And then it would be, third alien from the left in Jabba's palace or something like that. And so, but they were always trying to trip people up. But they had some people that really knew their stuff. And then the other thing they would have in the mornings is that they'd have a lot of photo ops already there with the characters. They usually had Boba Fett, Darth Vader, Kylo Ren, an Ewok, and some Tusken Raiders. Plus, they would have a big... I'm thinking it was just a statue of Jabba the Hutt, but he looked like he was sitting there on his dais with Salacious Crumb sitting by him. You didn't really have a lot of time to get pictures with more than one character, though, in the morning. The waits got to be kind of long. So, for instance, before the 5K, my wife Beth and I did our photo with Kylo Ren, and you don't really get many chances at that shot, too. You got to get in there. They want to see your bib, because they link the picture to your bid number, and that's how you look up your pictures there. And it's kind of click and go. They'll take a picture with your phone if you want as well. But Kylo was one of the few characters that actually had dialogue. So I walked up and he's like, "You will stand here." Like, yes, sir. And so we all did kind of that force freeze motion where you hold out his hand like he was stopping pose blaster shot, and then he barks at me, goes, "This meeting is over." And so and then off you go.
Now, did you have to pay extra for those, or was that all kind of part of the... Oh, that's good.
No, they'll take your picture for free with your phone. If you want their picture, you either need to have signed up for the Memory Maker package, which is it's like a $200 thing, but it gets you every photo that's taken of you over the course of the weekend. And that's both during you can link your bib number to the package. And then, so you got those, and then you have professional photographers around all the Disney parks that'll take your picture as well. And you can get all those pictures for free. I did that, and I know $200 sounds really steep, but here's the thing. It's that each one of the races, we had, probably between Beth and myself, we had, a dozen to 20 pictures of us, of someone taking a picture on the race. And then, we got the picture, a professional camera quality picture there with the characters. And then just, you didn't have to ask people to take pictures with your phone when you're at the parks as well. I highly recommend it. I've downloaded all of those to my computer. You could download them from their app to your phone if you want. And I was doing that and posting those on Instagram and social media throughout the weekend. But highly, highly worth it. But again, if you don't want to do that, there was usually the professional photographer there. And then there was another Disney, someone who's managing the line. They'd take as long as you had your phone ready to go, they'd take your picture with your phone as well. And yeah, you had plenty of opportunities to do that. That was an awful lot of fun. And then, we recently just did That's a Wizard for Celebration, and we went over a lot of the cosplay. Well, tons of people were dressing up to run in these races as well. I can't remember distinctly which costumes went with which race, but I know, except for one instance, that running group that Mike from Be Our Guest and I were talking about, the lizards. On the day of the 10K, there was nearly a dozen of them that dressed up as porgs.
Oh, wow.
And
did they all run together in a herd?
Yes, they all crossed the finish line at the same time. And another guy in the group dressed up as Chewbacca. And so
was chasing them, I assume.
Yeah, he had when I mentioned the Chewbacca running shirt from the Expo, he was wearing that and then a Chewbacca beanie. And so it was kind of funny because they were in a different corral than I was. I was in the second to last corral for the 10K, and they were several corrals ahead of me. And they have at the start, they have a big video screen, and so kind of the MCs for the race are doing entertainment because they're letting all the runners go in waves so that you're not running on top of each other. But then they're interviewing people in the crowds, and they're showing clips from Star Wars movies, and they're doing some other trivia and stuff. But then as they let each wave go, they got them on screen as they're running by. And it was kind of funny seeing this flock of porgs all run across the starting line at the same time. And the MC noticed, he's like, "Oh my God, we got porgs." And so as they all ran across, that was a lot of fun. Another popular one was Hut Slayers. I saw a number of those running by. And that makes sense because it's hot and muggy in Florida. And so
even in April.
A fair amount of rays, because I think that was a costume that is I don't want to say it's easy to do, but it's not as complex to do as a lot of costumes.
It's not as constricting either.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of Han Solos as well. I think that was probably the number one costume I saw for men.
Interesting.
Now that I'm thinking about it, one of my other two of my other favorite groups there was a mashup group of Avengers Stormtroopers. So there was one Avenger for Thor, Captain America, Tony Stark, Black Widow, Hulk, Loki, Captain Marvel. They had quite a group. And I did not believe for a second that they were going to actually be able to run well in those costumes, but they passed me during the 5K. They ran right by me. And they were like carrying on a conversation while they did it too. So
that's impressive. Most impressive.
Yeah. And then my other favorite was someone, you want to talk about like the ultimate Disney mashup, another Disney property, The Muppets. The Swedish chef was running with a porg in a pot.
How great is that?
Yeah.
Well, and that's where that memory maker package can come in too, I'm sure, because, then you can, because everything I'm sure happens so fast. And then you can kind of take the time to look back at some of the things that you may have missed or just enjoy some of the things that were from the race.
Right, because anytime your bib number shows up in a picture, it gets linked to your account. And so as I was looking back, and it got to be a game because the first race I ran, that 5K, I didn't realize what these little green tents that were along the race course, but they were little shelters. That 5K morning, it was raining, and I'll get into a story about that in just a second, but the photographers were hiding in there, and so I didn't notice them at first. And there was several of them along the course, and they were just taking picture after picture after picture, just dozens of them. And if your bib number was anywhere in that shot, even if you were the focus of the shot or not, you got the picture, and so linked to your account. And so I was getting all these pictures back, and then it was just kind of fun, like you were saying, because there'd be some people in costumes around there, running around you. And, there was a kid that was, she was dressed up as Jen Erso, and she kept sprinting out ahead, and then she kept falling back to her mom. And there was a couple pictures where she's like running in, like you could see the sequence of her behind me, alongside of me, ahead of me, because they snapped those off real quick. But that was a nice feature of the race. But I mentioned it, so I want to get into it real quick. But that morning of the 5K, so we got there, and the race was supposed to start at 5:30, and it was a little odd because they were going on about how there's only 3 corrals for that race, A, B, and C, and they were going to release each corral in a series of mini waves to spread us out over the course. Because as a 3.1 mile race, there isn't a lot of time for people to get spread out. You would otherwise just be on top of each other. And so 5:30 comes and they haven't really made any move towards releasing people to run. And so finally, one of the MCs gets up there and he's like, well, I've got something to read. And this collective groan went up from the crowd. He's like, yeah, y'all see where this is going, don't you? And he basically is reading this weather report that due to lightning in the area, they had to evacuate the course. And so they basically gave us an option. You could, if you drove to, and this is in Epcot's parking lot, the 5K was just around Epcot. If you drove, you could go back to your car. Otherwise, you need to head back to one of the buses for the Disney resorts. And it didn't matter which one. You just had to get on one. It didn't have to be your resort. They just needed to get you out of the parking lot where they had the corrals. They needed to get people undercover. Or you could head into Epcot and they had some area there. So we went back to one of the buses. And it was just kind of like, well, this wasn't really a secret. We could see lightning in the area for the previous 30 minutes. It just was kind of in the distance. But they were just trying to wait it out, but they couldn't. And so of all things, after about 15, 20 minutes, the driver turned on a movie for us. Now we're in an older bus and it still had the old CRT screens as opposed to an LCD or an LED. So we got to watch Rush Hour 2.
Oh boy.
Of all things. And so it was about an hour and a half delay. So we saw most of Rush Hour 2. And then they got us out on the course. Unfortunately, by that time, it was a little after 7. They were trying to get the race started by 7:15. Part of the course was flooded. So instead of being a true 5K, it was probably closer to a 4K.
Wow.
And then they just let us all go in one gigantic group. And so this mass of people goes running out there. But that being said, it was so much fun. You started kind of outside Epcot. You kind of doubled back around the parking lot. Then you entered Epcot from the side and ran around the World Showcase. So you're running by all the different countries that have pavilions there. And when you're done, you run into Future World, which is where, if you're not familiar with Epcot, if you know the big icon of the park, it's that gigantic silver ball that sits in the front, which is the Spaceship Earth attraction. And so you're basically running straight towards that, and then you kind of veer off to the right, and there's an exit out of the park there, and then that leads you towards the finish line. With the weather, most of the on-course entertainment, which I'll get to in a bit when we talk about the 10K and the half marathon, was gone. But there near the finish line, there was a lot of members from the 501st. That was like the one place they could have them. So if you wanted your picture with the Death Trooper, you could do it. If you wanted a picture with Stormtroopers and Darth Vader, they were all set up there. I only stopped for 2 pictures there. One was with a Sabine cosplayer. She had a great set of Season 1 Rebels armor on, and she did a fantastic job. So I stopped. I mean, it was like 2 seconds. No one was waiting there for her. So I was like, perfect. I ran up, pulled out my phone, took the selfie, and then there was a snow trooper standing right next to her. So I got one with him, and then I went to the finish line. Fun, but they really had to cram that race in and get it done and get people back to their hotels before the park opened that morning.
Yes, because when you say a mass of people, I know we had talked about this just a little bit. How many runners would you say per day were going through these courses, just to give the Scoundrels an idea of the complexity and the vastness of this?
Probably 20 to 30,000 or so. I mean, and that may be understating it. Yeah, I mean, my bib number was 26,300 something. And so, for the 5K and the 10K, and then I had a different bib number for the 5K, and yeah, there was a lot of people there for that. And the 5K was a popular race because it's the short one, and people wanted to go there and collect that Disney medal. And so, but it was not ideal, but they did what they did so that we could all enjoy the race. And so I didn't have an issue with that. And the middle sure was cool. The 5K one featured Finn and Phasma. And it's kind of like, it's hard to describe. It's a silver middle. It was circular. Finn was on the left side. Phasma was on the right. And it was silver, kind of, it was reflecting the color for armor, if nothing else. But it was a good time. After it was over, they have plenty of water and Powerade as you cross the finish line. They encourage you to take as much as you want. They have a medical tent right there if you need any type of assistance or help. And then the characters are still sitting around from the morning, are still around if you want to go get more pictures. But at that point, it's a short race. People finish it fast enough. The area was just swamped. So we just decided to head back to our resort. And that was the day of our 5K.
So the competitiveness of it, would you say which race was the most competitive and which one was probably the most, I guess, fun, non-competitive, if you had to characterize them?
Sure. The 5K was not timed. And so a lot of people just ended up walking it because they were in a group with people and it was so crowded. I can't help it. Anytime I've run 4 races now in the past month, and at any time that I get in a race, the competitive juices start flowing, and I just run. I'm running. So that being said, the 5K was just too crowded for, if you really were just trying to run for a time or something like that. You had to keep it yourself because they weren't doing an official time. But it was fun. But again, the on-course entertainment was gone, and I'll get to that in just a second. For me, the most fun of the 3 was the 10K. The half marathon that day was extremely humid, and it was also very warm. And halfway through the race, the sun was up, and so we were really starting to feel it then. And you got to see a lot more of the Walt Disney World property, and it was fun. But the 10K, I think, was really, for the spirit of the thing, was like the ideal race. So. But speaking of which, that second day was a 10K. That morning when we got there, we decided to get our photo with Darth Vader. It was kind of fun because there was another racing group. I'm going to call they were something like the Trooper Group or the Trooper Squad or whatever. And we were waiting in line. And as we were getting closer to the time of the race, I was like, I'm not sure we're actually going to get this picture with Darth Vader in. But then all of a sudden, we were like, the line would snake back and forth. Well, we were 3rd or 4th branch of that snake back from Darth Vader, and everyone in front of us, or half the line in front of us, all of a sudden just mobbed Darth Vader at once. It was this trooper group. They had like 30 people that posed with Darth Vader at one time. It was kind of fun to watch. All of a sudden, like Darth Vader looked really confused, at the extent that he could, because he couldn't make any facial expressions, but he's just kind of like looking around at all of them, and he kind of lost his stoicness there. He did a good job. He recovered it quickly. But so they did that. And then after that, we were able to get our picture taken pretty quick. But the 10K was great because you started in the Magic Kingdom's parking lot that day. You ran out of the parking lot, down the highway. Then there was a big ramp that loops back up over that highway, and that heads to Epcot. But it was not even quite the 1 mile mark. They had a cast member dressed up as Rey, and she's standing on top of a platform, and she's in perfect character going on about something like, she's talking about the Millennium Falcon and how it's made the parsec run, and it's made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs, and how she and Chewbacca have been flying this ship, and then she says something to the fact like, because when you registered for the run, you picked either the light side or the dark side, and you got your bib reflected that. Yeah, I picked the light side. So for the 5K, I got a bib that had Finn on it, and if you registered for the dark side, you got one that had Phasma. And for the challenge run, my bib had Luke on it. And if you registered for the challenge on the dark side, you had Darth Vader. If you did the 10K light side, your bib had Han Solo on it, and otherwise it had Boba Fett. And then for the half marathon, it was Rey and Kylo, respectively. But then she was saying things like, I see a number of you are support the resistance. Well, you can still be redeemed to the light. And she's just kind of like marching back and forth across the stage, but you could stop there. She was like the one character you couldn't pose next to. And I think there's some probably obvious reasons for that, but you could pose like standing just below her. And when you did that, she would kind of stop and strike this pose above you. I can't do it justice by describing it, but it was a great, I didn't do it 10K because as you were asking me, that was the day I was the most competitive. I just ran that entire run. It was not my best 10K, but for the size of the crowd, I still got it done in just a little over an hour. But I knew if she was there, the half marathon, I was definitely going to stop. But even then, you're running down the highway towards this ramp so you could head towards Epcot, and they have this gigantic screen set up that you can see from half a mile away, showing clips of Star Wars on it.
Oh, wow.
I saw Darth Vader slaughtering rebels from the end of Rogue One, and then there was there was a scene from The Empire Strikes Back that followed that, and the Mustafar scene, the Battle of the Heroes between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin that was after that. And so they just had a lot of that type of on-course entertainment.
Get your adrenaline pumping with some of those scenes too, I'm sure.
Yeah. And Darth Maul was hanging out at one part of the course. And then, so you had a lot of that type of stuff going on. So it kept you motivated. I had brought some headphones so that I could just listen to music or whatever, but I kept turning off my own stuff so that I could absorb what was going on during the race. But then, so you did the 10K, you ran down the highway from Magic Kingdom up the ramp, down the street towards Epcot. You came in on one side of Spaceship Earth, kind of ran around Future World and some of the other pavilions that are there for their exhibits, then back through the World Showcase, and then you doubled back from where you were and you came out. You finished in the same place you did the 5K, and lots of characters. Sabine and Ezra were there. They had a nice little photo op in front of a TIE Fighter panel, and it had it looked like Sabine had spray painted or graffitied the whole thing, which was kind of a nice feature. And then when you finished that one, the medal for that day was a gold medal that featured Han Solo and Boba Fett, just like I was talking about with the bibs. They had certain rivals for each one of the races.
Right.
So taking a break from the races that day, that Saturday afternoon, we headed over to Disney Hollywood Studios to take in Star Tours, and we had a lot of fun doing that. We went over to the launch bay, which is kind of they've set it up because they've closed down a number of attractions there at Hollywood Studios while they're building Galaxy's Edge, and this is kind of a Star Wars show floor, so they have a huge Solo exhibit. So they had Kira's costume from Corellia there, and they had Han's Corellian costume there. They had a few models from the set. They had like the Han Speeder from Corellia that you could look at in one room. They have the pod racer from Anakin's pod racer from the Phantom Menace there. And then they have 3 character meet and greets that you can do. Kylo Ren, which we did not do. There's BB-8, which is very, very basic. He's just kind of sitting there on a pedestal and his head swivels around and he beeps at you and you can pose for a picture with him. It's cute. And then Chewbacca is there. Now, Chewbacca is a lot of fun. So I am wearing my race finisher shirt from the 10K, and it's got Han Solo and Boba Fett on it. And you kind of line up outside this room that he's in, and then they let you in at one group at a time. And then so you go through the door and you kind of come around a corner of a hall, and he's standing there at the entrance and he sees me and he just kind of growls the sad growl and he puts his hand over Han Solo on my shirt. And then he looks over at the handler for the room and he just, and so the handler says, he wants to know if you raced for the light side or the dark side. Well, I'm not an idiot. And I did in fact ride for definitely for the light side. And so he patted me on the shoulder, and then we went into the room to do the picture, and he shakes my hand. And,
how fun.
I was just kind of playing. I had no idea what he was getting at, but he's, just kind of growling at you a little bit. And Beth came in and got a big Wookiee hug from him, and so we posed some pictures. But it's a lot of fun. If you find yourself there at Hollywood Studios, you need to go meet Chewbacca. I've heard people that have met Kylo that described it as being very, very intense. So if you want to do the dark side version, go check that out. And of course, Star Tours is fun.
Cool.
If you've done that ride a few times, it's kind of a spoof of riding through the different movies, and they have different segments. You get basically 2 different scenes, and they mix them up every time you go. So no 2 rides should really be the same unless you've done it 100 times. But that's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Yeah, I was looking at those medals too online, and they are just beautifully crafted. With the 2 different signs, because you said it's kind of hard to describe the Finn and Phasma one. And Scoundrels, you really need to get online to StarWars.com or just Google the Rival Run and take a look at these medals, because they really are nice.
Yeah, I'm going to try and put some pictures of them in the show post for this over on RetroZapp as well. And they were so much fun to collect. They're heavy too. They got some nice heft to them. My original plan for the day when we went to Hollywood Studios was to meet Chewbacca, was to take that medal with me and to show it to Chewbacca. But after wearing it for 30 minutes after the medal, I was like, I'm done wearing this thing. And lots of people did, and more power to if you could. My tip would be, make sure you get plenty of sunscreen on the back of your neck. That'd be a heck of a farmer's tan. And I saw it several times. People took off their medal And you could tell exactly where that ribbon was because they had a nice big white patch across the back of their neck and then a nice good red patch from being sunburned there.
Yeah.
And so, and it's you can wear it for a little while. The day after the half marathon, kind of skipping ahead, I'm not going to go through that entire half marathon. Other to say, it was extremely warm. It was extremely humid. That is not a race to run for personal best. The only way you're getting your personal best is that's the first half marathon you've ever run. But which in my case, other than a virtual one, it was. But I stopped at every water stop, got water, got Powerade.
Smart.
It was fun because you left from the Magic Kingdom parking lot again. You took a side road this time, and at the mile mark there was Ray, so I stopped and I got my picture with her, which was really cool. You run a little bit farther, and all of a sudden you could see all this flashing in the distance. Well, they made it look like there was a battle going on both sides of this road. And so you went there was fog and red lasers and explosions in the background. They had fireworks going off that looked like it was rock. And it just kept going and going and going. And that was pretty cool. If you listened to the preview episode, you heard Mike talk about the photo opportunity where it's the Wampus Cave.
Oh, yeah.
I so wanted to stop and do that. But I was so needlessly paranoid about making my time to make sure I got all my bonus challenge medals that I did not do it because it had 40 or 50 people in line to do that photo op. And it's like, I can't wait for that. Beth did. Beth stopped and got that one. And it is so cool. And I am so jealous. I so wish I had gone ahead and stopped for it. Next time, whenever that might be. But you go from there, you run into the Animal Kingdom, which is awesome because you run through the Pandora Land. Which and at that time they've got all the lighting in there, the bioluminescent plants are still glowing at that time of the morning. So that was cool. You run from there into the Disney Hollywood Studios park, out there into there's actually one of the resorts called the Boardwalk, and by the time you got there in the morning, there was actually people that were staying at the resort that came down, were holding up signs and cheering for you. That's where I found Ezra and Sabine that morning, and I got my picture with them. Sabine blinked, but still, it was a cool picture. And then you run through Epcot's World Showcase and then out to the usual finish line. So that was cool. And then, you collect your half marathon medal as you go across the finish line. Then there's a challenge tent that you go to, and they, your bib shows that you're running the both the 10K and the half. So they give you your medal there, which is kind of cool because it's got half Luke's face and half Darth Vader's face, but you can flip it over so you can get all of Luke's face or all of Darth Vader's face. It's a very kind of rotational medal. It's got pieces that you can move around on it, which are pretty neat. And then if you've done the Kessel Run Challenge, you walk up to the next station right past that, and they cut off your wristband and they give you your Millennium Falcon medal. So that was cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, and then that morning was fun because as I was running, I only did a couple of characters. I stopped for Rey, I stopped for Ezra and Sabine. I stopped to get my picture taken in front of Spaceship Earth. And other than that, I kind of slowed down and got water and Powerade, but I didn't do a lot of the other stops. And so I got across the finish line and I had time to kill. Well, because people were so spread out, all the photo ops in the morning were real easy to get through. So I did my picture with Jabba. I did my picture with Kylo again. I did my picture with an Ewok. That was fun. He was whoever was in that costume was jumping up and down and doing all kinds of Ewok things and pointing to my middle and rubbing his hands together. And we did our pictures before that race with the Tusken Raiders. They were a lot of fun too. They were, raising their gaffy sticks above their head and cheering and stuff. So, and there was a great K2SO there that we took our picture around. But cool. Yeah, that's kind of the race weekend. It's, if you're at all considering a Disney race and you're a Star Wars fan, I would highly recommend, if you can make it happen someday, to get down, even if it's just the 5K or you don't have to do all the races. That was a challenge I set for myself a year ago, and it's just something I wanted to prove to myself I could do. But even if it's just to do a 5K or the 10K, and it's just such there's something about running through the World Showcase with Star Wars music blaring all over the place for half an hour.
Oh, yeah. That would be so awesome. Well, and and the thing of it is, too, is I was looking at the prices for the races themselves. Mm-hmm. And realistically speaking, for the races, they're not that expensive. I mean, the most expensive part would be getting down there, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I'm assuming that the race, you don't have to pay to get into the park if you're part of the race.
No.
Right.
You don't get to go back into the park and hang out afterwards, but
right.
yeah, but the thing is that even if you weren't going to buy park admission, you could go over to Disney Springs and hang out for the day. And if you put enough pre-planning into it, you could do Secrets of the Empire while you're there at Disney Springs, and you would have plenty of other things to do. You could hang out at if you're staying on one of the Disney properties, they all have amazing pools. You could hang out at the pool that day, or and then conceivably you could fly home. I wouldn't recommend it after running, especially if you did the half marathon, you might lock up a bit, but it was an experience that I was really glad I did. I'm hoping to do it again sometime in the not so distant future. Beth and I had a fantastic weekend doing all that. It was just, I had never run a half marathon, so that was my first. And especially running the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon in 3 consecutive days. Mm-hmm. I trained for a year for that. So it was really cool to get that accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. And you should be very proud of yourself.
Oh, thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
Well, thanks so much.
Seriously. That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, the merchandise is fun. It was we just got back from Star Wars Celebration. Pardon me. And I spent plenty of money there, but I was a bit tempered after buying merchandise at the Rival Run weekend. So a lot of good stuff there. Well, all right. But that will do it for our recap of Rival Run weekend. Jay, before we go, where else can everyone find you?
Well, you can find me right here on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and you can also find my archived blogs over at Coffee with Kenobi, as well as my Core Worlds Couture fashion review blogs as well. And I just received my virtual half marathon medal in the mail.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And I can definitely attest to the weightiness of them. It's my second one now, my second medal in 2 years. So yeah, I was pretty proud to get that. And you're right. If nothing else, it's a good incentive to keep you in shape. Even if you don't get to go to the parks to do the Rival Run or any of the races, it's a great way to stay in shape.
Yeah, and now that you brought that up, if you're looking for some other virtual races, especially in the Disney vein, they have their Summer Challenge this series, which is themed after Marvel. And there is a Captain Marvel medal, an Iron Man medal, and a Black Panther, and they're all just 5Ks. I say that's actually a challenge, especially if you're a runner, but it's something to train for, and it's very, very doable with a little bit of discipline. So go check that out at runDisney.com. As for our absent co-host, Darth Taxus, you can find him over on the Geek Supreme each week with Scott Murray, Jeff McGee, and Regina Davis with their Around the Horn style geek topic discussion show. As for me, you can find my comic reviews on RetroZap.com, and each month I'm talking Star Wars comics with Jovial J. Shepard on Jedi Journals. My wife Beth and I host a Star Trek podcast currently devoted to Discovery called Warp Trails, and if it hasn't come out already, the season finale recap will be out shortly. You can find that exclusively on the RetroZap podcast feed. If you want to find us on social media, we are at SQPod on Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook at facebook.com/SQPod. You can email us at sqpod@retrozap.com. You can follow Darth Taxus on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Jay is at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. And if you want to see pictures from the race, check out my Instagram account, which is DJ Keithly Jr. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features more than a dozen shows covering everything from retro gaming, movies, collecting, and a whole lot of Star Wars. Subscribe to the network feed, and you can get them all in one place. We'd love a review wherever you listen to your podcast, and tell your friends, especially the ones that like Star Wars, about our show. Help them subscribe if they don't know how. We really appreciate all the help you give us, Scoundrels. We've been getting some really great numbers lately, and it's in large part due to all of your support. That will do it for this Scoundrels Special Edition. We'll talk to you all soon with another episode of Starship Sabers and Scoundrels. Until then, Scoundrel Nation, may the Force be with you.